in the vast expanse of the Serengeti Wildlife Reserve, where golden savannas stretch endlessly beneath the African sun, an unprecedented situation had gripped the entire ranger community with fear. For male lions, once part of the reserve's pride and joy, had transformed into something the rangers had never encountered before. These weren't ordinary predators, following natural instincts. They had become rogue, aggressive, and seemingly calculated in their attacks against the very humans sworn to protect them. For weeks, these magnificent yet terrifying creatures had launched coordinated attacks on ranger patrols, vehicles, and outposts. But what happened when a small, innocent girl wandered into their territory would challenge everything the rangers thought they knew about these formidable beasts? The Serengeti Wildlife Reserve sprawled across thousands of acres in East Africa, home to some of the continent's most diverse wildlife. Among its most beloved attractions were the lion prides that roamed freely across the protected lands. Tourists traveled from around the world to catch glimpses of these majestic creatures in their natural habitat. Rangers monitored and protected the animals, maintaining the delicate balance between conservation, research, and tourism. Until recently, incidents between humans and wildlife remained rare and manageable. The 4 lions at the center of the growing crisis had once belonged to the dominant Kimbala pride, named after the ancient baobab tree where they often gathered. These males, identifiable by their distinctive manes and markings, had been favorite sightings for visitors. Rangers had even named them Jabari, the largest with a dark mane, Nuru, recognizable by the scar across his nose, Taji, slightly smaller with unusual golden eyes, and Sephu, the youngest but perhaps most aggressive of the 4. The trouble began 3 months earlier when territorial disputes within the pride escalated. These 4 males, all brothers from the same litter, had been challenged by younger rivals. Instead of continuing the fight or establishing territory elsewhere within the reserve as was common, the 4 lions had broken away completely, moving to the northwestern sector, an area closer to ranger stations and local villages than lions typically ventured. Rangers first noticed changes in their behavior during routine monitoring. The lions no longer fled from vehicle sounds as most wild lions would. Instead, they watched intently, tracking the movements with unusual focus. Senior Ranger Marcus Okafor had noted this behavior change in his reports, concerned by what he called deliberate observation by the lions. Within weeks, the first incident occurred. A research team collecting vegetation samples found themselves stalked for 3 kilometers by all 4 lions moving in coordinated patterns rather than the random following behavior sometimes seen in curious lions. When the team's vehicle stalled briefly, the lions approached with purpose until emergency flares scared them away. This marked the beginning of what would become a series of increasingly bold confrontations between these 4 rogue lions and the humans, who had once admired them from a respectful distance. What started as unusual behavior quickly escalated into something the reserve had never experienced before. 2 weeks after the research team incident, the first direct attack occurred. Senior Ranger Thomas Mbeki and his junior partner were conducting a routine fence inspection along the northwestern boundary when their Jeep broke down near a small watering hole. As Thomas worked under the hood, his partner spotted movement in the tall grass. Without warning, all 4 lions emerged, not in the cautious manner typical of wild predators, but with deliberate, focused intent. The rangers managed to climb onto the roof of their vehicle just as Jabari and Taji charged forward. For 3 terrifying hours, the lions circled the Jeep, occasionally leaping against its sides and clawing at the metal. When the rescue team arrived, the lions retreated only temporarily, watching from a distance with unnerving attention. The incident shook the ranger community, but many still considered it an anomaly, perhaps triggered by territorial confusion or a nearby kill the lions were protecting. This theory collapsed when the second attack came just 4 days later. 2 rangers on foot patrol found themselves ambushed by all 4 lions simultaneously approaching from different directions. Nuru and Sephu had circled behind them while Jabari and Taji approached from the front, a hunting tactic lions typically used for large prey, not humans. The rangers discharged warning shots into the air and deployed pepper spray, barely escaping to a nearby observation tower, where they remained trapped until darkness fell and the lions finally moved away. Reserve management implemented immediate safety protocols. Rangers now traveled in larger groups with enhanced deterrence. Wildlife biologist Dr. Eleanor Cavindi suggested the lions might be suffering from an illness or injury causing aggression. A plan was formulated to tranquilize and examine the lions, potentially relocating them to a more remote section of the reserve. The tranquilizer operation proved disastrous. When the wildlife management team arrived at the lions' known territory, they found the animals seemingly waiting for them. As soon as the marksman prepared his rifle, the lions scattered in different directions, only to regroup and approach from behind. 2 team members were injured before they could retreat, with Sephu dragging one ranger several meters before other team members could intervene with emergency flares and air horns. 3 additional attempts to capture the lions failed. The animals displayed an uncanny ability to detect the tranquilizer teams, avoiding the darts and then counterattacking with increasing ferocity. During the final attempt, the lions damaged 2 vehicles, puncturing tires and breaking windows. Even more unsettling, they appeared to be learning from each encounter, adapting their tactics and showing no fear of the usual deterrence. Fear spread through the reserve and nearby communities. Local villagers threatened to take matters into their own hands if the authorities couldn't control the situation. Tourism was suspended in the northwestern sector as the lions began actively patrolling the roads used by safari vehicles. Most alarming was their apparent focus on ranger vehicles specifically, ignoring tourist jeeps but stalking and charging any vehicle bearing the ranger service colors. By the 6th week of the crisis, the lions had injured 7 rangers, destroyed 3 vehicles, and created an atmosphere of dread throughout the reserve. Wildlife officials from the capital arrived to assess the situation, bringing with them the grim possibility that these 4 magnificent animals might need to be destroyed to ensure human safety. The situation reached its breaking point on a scorching Tuesday afternoon when the 4 lions launched their most brazen attack yet. A team of 5 rangers responding to a report of poaching activity found themselves surrounded in a small valley. Despite following all safety protocols, they were unprepared for the coordinated assault that followed. The lions attacked simultaneously from multiple angles, overturning the lead vehicle and creating chaos as rangers scrambled for safety. When the dust settled, 4 rangers had sustained injuries. Senior Ranger Marcus Okafor suffered deep lacerations to his leg while pulling his younger colleague to safety. The reserve's director, Helen Nkosi, could no longer delay the inevitable discussion about the lions' fate. She called an emergency meeting at the main compound, bringing together rangers, wildlife biologists, government officials, conservation experts, and representatives from surrounding communities. The atmosphere in the meeting room crackled with tension as medical staff provided updates on the injured rangers. Dr. Cavindi presented her analysis, explaining that all conventional management strategies had failed. The tranquilizer team leader described how the lions seemed to anticipate their tactics, making capture nearly impossible without risking human lives. Regional Wildlife Authority Representative Thomas Banda then presented what many had feared: official authorization to eliminate the threat if no viable alternative could be implemented within 72 hours. The announcement split the room into opposing factions. Many rangers, particularly those who had faced the lions directly, reluctantly supported the culling as necessary for safety. Conservation specialists argued passionately for more time and resources to attempt capture rather than killing. Local village representatives were divided, some demanding immediate action to protect their communities, others expressing cultural reverence for the lions and opposition to their destruction. Helena watched the arguments escalate, knowing that whatever decision emerged would leave lasting scars on the reserve's mission and morale. These 4 lions had become symbols of something deeper: the complex, sometimes impossible balance between human safety and wildlife conservation. As raised voices filled the room, she noticed wildlife photographer James Kalu and his 10-year-old daughter, Malaika, slip quietly into the back of the room, having arrived that morning for what was supposed to be a routine documentation project. Little did anyone realize that this child's presence would soon change everything about the crisis that had consumed the reserve for nearly 2 months. As Helena called for order among the arguing factions, the clock was ticking on the 72-hour deadline, with the 4 rogue lions patrolling just 4 kilometers from where they sat. Malaika Kalu had grown up surrounded by wildlife. At 10 years old, she had already visited more nature reserves and conservation areas than most people would in a lifetime. Her father, James Kalu, was a renowned wildlife photographer and researcher whose work documenting endangered species had taken them across Africa. From the moment she could walk, Malaika had displayed an unusual affinity for animals that even her experienced father couldn't explain. Unlike other children who might fear large animals, Malaika approached them with a calm curiosity that seemed to be reciprocated. In their home in Nairobi, injured birds would eat from her palm when they refused food from others. During a previous expedition to a chimpanzee sanctuary, the notoriously shy juveniles had approached her without hesitation while keeping their distance from other humans. James had countless photographs of his daughter, surrounded by animals that typically avoided human contact, yet seemed drawn to her presence. They had arrived at the Serengeti Wildlife Reserve the previous evening after a long journey. James had been commissioned to document the reserve's conservation efforts for an international magazine. The assignment was supposed to focus on the successful anti-poaching initiatives and community involvement programs. Neither he nor Malaika had any idea they were walking into a crisis until they were briefed by Helena during their orientation. Malaika sat quietly beside her father during the emergency meeting, her wide brown eyes taking in the heated debate about the lion's fate. Unlike the adults around her who saw the situation in terms of policies and protocols, she listened to the descriptions of the lions with genuine curiosity rather than fear. When photographs of the 4 males were projected onto the screen during Dr. Kavindi's presentation, Malaika studied them intently while others in the room flinched at the images of the animals that had caused so much pain. After the meeting, as James discussed his assignment with Helena, Malaika approached Dr. Kavindi with questions that surprised the biologist with their insight. She wanted to know about the lions' behavior before they became aggressive, their family connections, and whether anyone had observed them when they weren't interacting with humans. The scientist answered patiently, struck by the child's unusual interest in understanding rather than fearing the animals. That night in their cabin, as her father prepared his equipment for the next day's modified assignment, Malaika pored over the reserve's educational materials about lions. She fell asleep clutching a book about lion social structures, unaware that her presence at the reserve was about to intersect with the crisis in ways no one could anticipate. The following morning broke with the golden light that made the Serengeti famous among photographers. James departed early with 2 rangers to document a family of elephants in the eastern sector, far from the troubled northwestern area where the rogue lions roamed. Malaika was left in the care of the reserve's education coordinator, who had planned a day of age-appropriate activities at the visitor center. Around mid-morning, during a nature walk near the main compound, Malaika noticed a beautiful butterfly with distinctive blue-spotted wings. While the coordinator was explaining local plant species to other visitors, Malaika followed the insect, mesmerized by its fluttering dance through the air. The butterfly led her down a trail, then off it, and deeper into the reserve. Time slipped away as she followed one butterfly, then another, then stopped to examine interesting plants and animal tracks along the way. The sounds of the visitor group faded behind her, replaced by the authentic chorus of the savannah. Only when the sun reached its zenith did Malaika realize she had wandered far from the permitted areas. Looking around, she recognized nothing familiar. The visitor center was nowhere in sight, and the path she had followed had disappeared among the tall grasses. Instead of panicking, she sat on a fallen log, remembering her father's instructions about getting lost. Stay in one place, make yourself visible, and wait for help. Meanwhile, at the ranger station, alarm spread when the education coordinator reported Malaika missing. Helena immediately ordered search teams deployed, with particular urgency when GPS tracking revealed the last location ping from Malaika's visitor badge placed her moving northwest, directly toward the territory now claimed by the 4 problem lions. Ranger Daniel Okumu was the first to spot her through his binoculars from an observation point. His heart nearly stopped when he radioed in her location. The child is approximately 2 kilometers inside the northwestern quadrant, sitting on a log in the small clearing near the seasonal stream, he reported, voice tight with tension. This is less than 1 kilometer from where the lion group was spotted this morning. Helena immediately diverted all available vehicles to the location, instructing the rangers to approach with caution and use the protocols designed for maximum safety. But before the nearest team could reach her, Daniel's voice came through the radio again, now pitched with barely controlled panic. All units respond immediately. The lions are present. Repeat. All 4 lions are approaching the clearing where the child is located. They've emerged from the eastern thicket, approximately 200 meters from her position. Through his binoculars, Daniel watched in horror as the scene unfolded. All 4 male lions moved with focused intent toward the small figure, sitting alone in the clearing. Jabari led the group, his massive form instantly recognizable by his dark mane. Behind him came Nuru with a scarred face, then Taji and Sephu fanning out to the sides in what appeared to be a coordinated approach. The same hunting formation they had used during their attacks on the rangers. Malaika spotted them when they were about 100 meters away. From Daniel's position, he expected to see her panic, to see her run, which would trigger the lion's chase instinct and seal her fate. Instead, something remarkable happened. She stood slowly, facing the approaching predators directly. Even from a distance, Daniel could see no sign of fear in her posture. 3 ranger vehicles raced toward the location, still minutes away despite their dangerous speed over rough terrain. The rangers knew they were too far to reach her before the lions did. Helena authorized the use of firearms if necessary to save the child, a decision that weighed heavily as she coordinated the response from the command center. Daniel watched helplessly as the distance between the lions and the small girl closed to 50 meters, then 30. His finger hovered over the radio transmit button, dreading the report he might have to make. The lead vehicle was still at least 3 minutes away. They wouldn't reach her in time. What happened next defied everything the rangers thought they knew about wild lion behavior. As Jabari approached within 20 meters of Malaika, he slowed his pace. The other 3 lions followed suit, their predatory stalking transformed into something more cautious and curious. Malaika remained perfectly still, her small frame silhouetted against the savanna grasses. Through his binoculars, Daniel observed something extraordinary in the child's demeanor. She showed no signs of terror, no frantic movements that might trigger the lion's hunting instinct. Instead, she stood with a preternatural calm, her posture relaxed yet attentive. When Jabari stopped 10 meters from her, Malaika did something that made Daniel's blood freeze. She slowly, deliberately sat down on the ground, making herself smaller and less threatening. The massive lion tilted his head, studying this unusual human who neither ran nor challenged him. Behind him, his 3 brothers spread out in a semicircle, their usual aggressive posture noticeably absent. Jabari took 3 more steps forward, close enough now that his exhale would ruffle the girl's hair. The rangers in the approaching vehicles, now close enough to witness the scene, readied their tranquilizer guns with shaking hands. Then something beautiful and inexplicable occurred. Malaika slowly extended her open palm downward, a gesture that seemed instinctively right to her, though she had never before encountered a wild lion. Jabari lowered his massive head, sniffing the air between them, the tension in his powerful shoulders visibly released. He blinked slowly, a sign recognized by feline experts as one of calm acceptance. The radio crackled with astonished reports as rangers witnessed what happened next. Jabari, the most feared of the 4 rogue lions, the one who had led attacks that injured multiple rangers, lowered himself to the ground in front of Malaika in a posture that was neither threatening nor submissive, but something mysteriously resembling respect. One by one, the other 3 lions followed suit. Nuru approached next, his scarred face now bearing none of the aggression that had terrified the reserve staff for weeks. He circled Malaika once, then settled into the grass nearby. Taji and Sephu remained slightly more distant, but displayed none of their previous aggression. The lead ranger vehicle had stopped 50 meters away, the team frozen in astonishment as they witnessed the impossible unfolding before them. Through the radio, Helena demanded updates, unable to believe what was being reported. The feared killers, the lions they had been prepared to destroy to protect human life, were now peacefully surrounding a small girl who showed no fear of them. Most remarkable was what happened when Malaika finally spoke. No one could hear her words at that distance, but they could see her lips moving as she addressed Jabari directly. The great lion's ears twitched forward, focusing on her with an intensity usually reserved for detecting prey. When she slowly, carefully raised her hand above his head, not touching, but offering connection, Jabari closed his eyes. The gesture conveyed a depth of understanding between species that transcended explanation. For 20 breathtaking minutes, this tableau held a small human girl surrounded by 4 wild lions who had, until this moment, shown nothing but hostility toward people. The rangers watched in wonder as boundaries thought to be fixed by nature dissolved before their eyes. What they witnessed wasn't merely unusual animal behavior. It was something profound, a connection that challenged everything they thought they understood about the relationship between humans and wild predators. When the rangers finally approached, moving with extreme caution, they witnessed another miracle. Instead of reverting to aggression, the 4 lions remained calm in Malaika's presence. Senior Ranger Marcus, still limping from his injuries, watched in disbelief as the child actually motioned for him to come closer. The lions tracked his movement with alert eyes, but made no threatening gestures. In the days that followed, Dr. Kavindi worked closely with Malaika and her father to understand what had happened. The breakthrough came when Malaika, with her innocent perception, noticed something the adults had missed. While sitting with the now docile lions under carefully supervised conditions, she pointed to Jabari's left forepaw. "He's hurting there," she said simply, "and the others are protecting him." Examination with telephoto lenses confirmed her observation. All 4 lions had similar injuries to their paws, deep, festering wounds that matched the pattern of illegal snares. Further investigation revealed that poachers had set a line of wire snares along the northwestern boundary. The 4 lions had likely been caught in these cruel devices, managing to break free but suffering painful injuries. Their subsequent aggression toward rangers made sudden, tragic sense. They associated the ranger uniforms and vehicles with the excruciating pain they had experienced. What made Malaika different? She carried no ranger equipment, wore no uniform similar to those worn by the poachers who had set the snares, and approached with an openness the lions somehow recognized as non-threatening. Her unthreatening size and the purity of her intentions had somehow cut through their trauma-induced aggression. With this understanding came the path to resolution. Working with Malaika's unusual connection, the veterinary team gradually gained enough trust to tranquilize each lion in sequence, properly treat their wounds, and fit them with tracking collars. Throughout this process, Malaika remained a calming presence, somehow communicating a reassurance that transcended species barriers. The anti-poaching team, following evidence from the snares, tracked down and arrested the poaching ring responsible for the lion's injuries. The reserve implemented new protocols for identifying and treating injured wildlife before they developed fear-based aggression toward humans. Most importantly, the relationship between the rangers and these 4 particular lions transformed. While never becoming tame, the lions ceased their attacks, eventually allowing ranger vehicles to pass through their territory without incident. For Helena and her team, the lesson was profound. What had appeared to be unprovoked aggression had actually been a response to human-inflicted suffering. It took a child's perception and innate connection to reveal the truth that seasoned professionals had missed. 6 months after the crisis, the 4 lions became ambassadors for wildlife conservation across the reserve. Rangers now regularly observed them from respectful distances without incident. Malaika's extraordinary connection inspired a new approach to wildlife management that emphasized understanding animal behavior as communication rather than simply as a threat. The beautiful harmony between humans and wildlife was restored, not through force or dominance, but through compassion and genuine connection. Malaika's pure, uninhibited approach to these magnificent creatures reminded everyone that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes through a child's eyes, unfiltered by fear or presumption. If this incredible story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more amazing wildlife encounters. Never miss another breathtaking moment where nature reveals its most beautiful secrets. Hit that subscribe button now and join our community of wildlife lovers, witnessing the extraordinary connections between humans and animals around the world.